Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Maples, dogwoods, hackberries, persimmons, and magnolias are all beautiful trees. And today we're answering questions about all of them. It's the Q&A show just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Trees are the focal point of any yard and some of the longest living plants in the landscape. Gardeners often have questions about these large plants, and today we're going to answer a few of them. Let's start with a question about some maple trees with browning leaves. My 30-year-old maple trees have large sections of leaves that are turning brown, drying up, and dying. It is happening over the majority of the tree. I tried checking for verticillium wilt by scraping the bark off some branches, but I don't think that was it. The trees get watered weekly when I water the lawn using irrigation water that can sometimes be salty and dirty. What might be stressing my maple trees? The irrigation water, not enough water, lack of nutrients, or possible disease. How can I help them? And this is Wendy from South Jordan, Utah.
Okay.
So how can we help Miss Wendy?
Well, from the pictures that we were looking at that she sent in along with that question, we were kind of leaning towards a leaf scorch type situation.
Definitely.
And basically what that means when you have a plant that's suffering from leaf scorch that's not being induced by a disease like a bacterial disease or a virus, general leaf scorch has to do with the uptake of water and the loss of water from the leaf surface. So that leaf surface, and think of a maple leaf, they're large.
Yeah,
and so
pretty
we've got a largely surface area there, and it's losing water right through respiration as that plant is recovering, and it just can't take up enough water to replace the water that's leaving from that leaf. And so then you get scorch, usually from the margins of the leaf inwards. And the veins will look okay, but then all that material, depending on how severe the situation is, you will have more or less margin of like necrosis, right? Like brownness around the edge of that leaf. And I think that we're kind of leaning towards that, just the availability of water and the ability of the plant to take it up. It was on a pretty narrow strip of ground with impervious surface on both sides, road, sidewalk. So that would probably be my first go-to.
That's definitely mine. Yeah, definitely environmental stresses, heat. Of course, wind plays a factor in that as well.
They're in Utah,
right?
So we've got some exposure.
For
definitely going to have the highlight and heat factor there
That's
in the
for sure.
summer.
And she did mention with the irrigation water, salty and dirty. That salt can build up over time.
It can accumulate in those soils because they don't get a lot of rain like we do here.
right.
So they're not getting the rain to flush the salts out of the soil. So, I mean, it could definitely, be an option or a contributing factor.
That's right.
But I feel like the causation is just the ability of the plant to take up water.
I would agree with that. Make sure you're watering deeply.
Yeah.
Deeply, okay? Most people, when they irrigate their lawn, they're thinking, your grass is pretty much the same water I can use for.
And they have
for
some
your trees.
restrictions on irrigation in Utah too. So, I mean, you have to consider where you are.
That's right. I've just heard you say that all maple trees have beautiful color during autumn, but our 30-year-old maple trees' leaves just shrivel up and turn brown. Our maple trees don't turn red in the fall. Should the pH of our soil be checked? Please advise. And this is Darlene. So Mary, you have anything? Any comments on that one?
Yeah, it could just be that the tree's getting old.
It could be.
Trees, like everything else, have a lifespan.
Yes.
And so sometimes as they get older, they're prone to developing some issues.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, like she said, maple tree, they lifespan is not. Some of them might not as long.
Right.
That could be the problem that they're getting old, and just stop producing those blooms on there. And sometimes maybe through a really drought, there might be some problem why they might not be able to put on there and so around there. But the age of the tree, and then look around the tree, and look at a lot of branch on your maple tree, and see how they begin to look.
Right. That's what I would advise doing as well, because yeah, she said the leaves are shriveling up and they just turn brown. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking, could it be a disease? Could it be
yeah.
wood borers? It is a 30-year-old tree.
Yeah.
So yeah, age is something I would be
Age,
concerned
yeah.
about as well. If you want to check the pH, I mean, yeah, we're not going to say you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely can. Go to your local extension office and get a soil test kit. But yeah, I'm thinking about that. And
Yeah.
usually when you think about leaves turning colors, that has more to do with the temperature, the weather.
Weather, yeah.
So yeah, again, it's a 30-year-old tree. So
Yeah.
there could be some issues. I have a redbud tree. On much of the tree, the leaves are turning yellow, but the veins are green. Not because it's autumn. This has been going on since summer. I love redbuds and sure would like to keep it happy. Thanks for any advice, and this is Terry from St. Helena Island, South Carolina. All right, so Terry, what do you think about that one, Celeste? So let's think about this now. St. Helena Island.
Yeah.
Let's think about soil types and things
Okay.
like that.
So typically, let's
Okay.
take the island thing out of the picture.
All right, let's
at
take that
first.
out.
So
Okay.
typically, when we have interveinal chlorosis on ornamental woody plants, we typically tend to go towards iron chlorosis
Right.
as being one of the issues, and that just means we have either a deficiency of iron in the soil,
Yeah.
or it's bound up where the plant can't extract that from the soil, whether that the issue is pH that's making it unavailable, or there could be a number of other situations. But then when you throw in that this was on an island,
St. Helena Island. Yeah.
and we did see a picture with that, and so we saw some palms and other things growing in the background. We were wondering if maybe soil type isn't playing into that, with it being possibly a very sandy soil, which actually just doesn't retain, those nutrients. It's not
Yeah.
there for it to pick up. Drainage is super quick through sandy soils. So that could be an issue.
I think that could be an issue, Natalie.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I'm a mountain girl. I love my redbuds.
All right, yeah.
And it could even be that there's an opportunity in a large container or something like that. And because
yeah,
it
there's
looked
small
more
trees.
like maybe a dwarf weeping type of red, or maybe it was just young. But I mean, you might have some
It looked
opportunities.
multi-stemmed. I
Yeah.
was thinking like Don Eagle.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
To say,
Okay.
to retain just a little bit of your mountain there in
Yeah.
the ocean, so you might have some other steps possible.
All right, so that's an option. Yeah, because soil type, it's going to mean a lot, right? Especially in an area like that. But yeah, redbuds are nice. I like redbuds.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, they're beautiful. Terry, we thank you for that question. But yeah, so yeah, it's difficult to treat for intraveinal chlorosis anyway. Iron chlorosis, so it could be hit or miss. You might have to wait it out. Maybe it corrects itself. But in this situation, yeah, sandy soil, that might be tough.
Yeah.
Might not be any iron there
Even
to
when you're
extract.
adding it, and
Yeah.
if you add it, it's just gonna shoot
Yeah.
right through the
That's right.
profiles.
My husband and I have lost one Japanese maple tree that had a white powdery looking substance on the trunk. It died very quickly. A second tree now has the same thing on it. My garden app identified it as two different bugs, mealybugs and some other bug, but I'm not confident in the app. My husband suggested I reach out to you all with a picture. Can you help identify and recommend treatment, please? I'd love to not lose this tree. Thank you so much. And this is Becky from right here in Memphis, Tennessee. So she tried to use the garden app
She
to
did.
identify, but she doesn't trust the app. So she trusts us.
I oftentimes do not trust those apps myself. So thank you for your confidence.
Yes, yeah, trust us. We'll help you out, Ms. Becky. So after looking at that, picture, here's what I saw. The white secretion, right? Well, that white secretion comes from a plant bug named the citrus flatted plant hopper.
Plant hopper.
It's a plant hopper.
When I was looking at that picture, I didn't know what it was called, so
Yep.
I'm glad you came up with the name,
Yep.
but I could definitely see the adult plant hopper.
Good,
You can
yep.
tell they
You can
kind
see
of
it.
have a distinct body shape. They're kind of flat like this, but standing upwards.
Yeah.
And I saw an adult. We saw some immatures on there.
We sure did.
And that white waxy
they secrete this little white,
cottony,
waxy covering.
it's just like a protection,
Yeah,
mechanism.
yeah.
And I understand why maybe her app went to mealybug at first,
I can see
because
that.
sometimes
I can
that
see
you
that.
you can have that type of thing there as well.
I can see that.
But we don't think that's what caused the death in the first Japanese maple.
No.
The feeding of those insects would not cause a rapid decline in death of a well-established Japanese maple tree.
Right. These plant hoppers are not a problem whatsoever. Stream of water, knock them off, insecticidal soap, something like that. They're not a major problem. They're not even a threat.
Yeah.
But we think something else may be.
Yes. So I have had lots and lots of calls at the extension office this year of Japanese maples that were previously fine last year and have had a rapid decline, complete death, or lost nearly half of their canopy. And I feel like it has a strong relationship with the drastic drop in
would agree.
temperature that we had last winter. I know we've said this before, but those temperatures were not outside of what our zone is gauged for, I guess you would say. Like, those temperatures were not below what the typical lowest temperature is for zone 7. It was how quickly the temperature dropped.
Yeah, it's
the
a quick
plants
drop.
did not have the time to move their sugars and water down into
Yeah.
their roots, and so we saw a lot of freezing within the
did.
exposed above ground parts of plants that normally would have been fine with a 0 degree temperature. So I feel like the death of that first tree probably was closely related to that cold event that we had. Maybe it already had some other kind of stress to it,
Maybe.
and that's why
Possibly.
it had a rapid decline and the second one did not.
Yeah.
There's lots of different things that could come into play. But the good news is
Good news.
that she doesn't have to worry about those bugs.
You don't have to worry about the citrus plant hopper.
Yeah.
Don't have to worry about that. Yeah, but you're right. So I have a Japanese maple, same issue.
Going down.
The cold.
Yeah.
Yes, going down.
And
Yeah,
just
pretty
looking
quick.
thin, and there'll be a branch here that's not looking well,
That's
but then
exactly
this
it.
one's okay, and then we're seeing some like epicormic sprouting where you've
exactly
got
it.
little sprouts coming out of like the main trunk or larger limbs. It's lots of strange things happening. So it was a unusual year. Hopefully we won't see things like that again in
Hopefully
the years
not.
to come.
Can you tell me what the strange growths are on the tips of some of these branches of my cherry tree? This tree has been healthy up until an ice storm we had this past winter. The tree suffered some damage as some of the branches are dead and the other ones now have this fungus or growth, and I don't know if it's a disease that will kill the tree or can I spray it with something to save it? Thanks for your help. Sincerely, Carolyn. How about that? So she really wants to try to save that cherry tree. So I'll start here. Great picture. We appreciate that picture first and foremost. So guess what? It is a fungus. Right. It's black knot.
Black knot, yeah.
That's what it is. So you
Yeah, black knot on there, and if you got cherry tree, you don't have a lot of problems. they have.
that's for sure.
I had some in my yard.
for
I had
sure.
some cherry tree in my yard. They had those black knots on it all the time. If you want to try to save that tree or try to prune, you can prune those off there. But you need to sterilize your pruning shears
Oh, yeah. That's a
after
good
each
point.
cut with some bleaching water. Sterilize those, and also you need to get those from around the tree if anything fall from the ground and everything.
So practice good sanitation.
Good sanitation. But you got a cherry tree, you're gonna have.
It's gonna have some problems.
You're gonna have some problem with that cherry tree. I just got tired of my problem with my cherry tree, and I made one good cut. I made one good pruning cut on it.
Oh, right at the bottom.
Right at the bottom.
Right at the base.
So yeah, I just didn't like. But it was a pretty tree when we were young, but when it got a little older, she did start having problems.
It's definitely gonna have problems. This is again a fungus, black knot. It attacks the Prunus family, genus,
okay.
Prunus genus, which are cherries and plums and apricots and things like that. Usually in the fall you get swellings on the twigs and the branches, and then the next season you get the black galls. So the best thing is to try to do, like Mr. Brooker said, you prune those out, sanitize those pruners if you can, practice good sanitation, pick it up, look for resistant varieties. I'm always big on that. You can try using a fungicide. You have to read and follow the label. You can try it. Chlorothianil is something that you can use. Copper-based fungicide is something that's recommended as well. I don't know if they're going to be 100% effective, but there are some means to be able to control it using a fungicide. But Yeah, I would go back to the cultural practices if at all possible.
I know
Miss
my
Carolyn.
neighbor like him. He done put about 4 or 5 in the yard. He just like those trees, like those cherry trees, and they constantly down. And
They have beautiful, blooms. I understand that.
He like here, and he really, but he just keep planting them different ones, different out there. So you don't have a problem with it now.
You don't have problems, so that is a fungus. I am going to grow American persimmon trees. I have been on the internet and can't seem to find an answer to my question. After persimmon seeds germinate, is there any care needed like pruning, or do I just let grow how they grow? And this is Nathan. So what do you think about that now?
Yeah. This is a native fruit that we are getting more questions about. So it's always fun to hear that folks are trying novel crops. So one of my first questions would be, what is the purpose of the persimmon crop? Is it just to support wildlife? Because when we're talking about American persimmons, we're not talking
small.
we're not talking about the large Asian persimmons
right.
that those here and further south are familiar with as a as a grocery store type of option. So what is the purpose? Is it just an ornamental tree? They can be large, right? And so we want to make sure that we understand whether this is just kind of a wildlife supporting ornamental or whether there are some production goals. There probably aren't as stringent pruning suggestions on persimmons as what we would see in an orchard for apples or peach. So it would be more about good overall structure, removing crossing limbs, making sure that you're reducing damage and any damaged areas and things like that. Sometimes American persimmon is actually used as a rootstock for Asian persimmons. So, just think about if there are more genuine fruit production goals, depending upon the area of the country.
Yeah,
Then-
maybe they really want Asian persimmons possibly.
maybe.
So that's
maybe.
just an important question.
Yeah.
Good. Well, Celeste, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think Natalie's has covered that well. Definitely.
Yeah. Minimum, pruning. Yeah.
I mean, I know some fruit crops, like you said, they encourage them to come in and top them to help them branch
branch
and make
out,
those
yeah.
scaffold branching. But again, it depends on what your goal is.
Yeah. Most people are kind of using them as a native ornamental
Support wildlife,
Yeah.
just kind of improve your biodiversity.
I planted a Sweet Bay Magnolia 2 years ago and it's doing great. This summer we had a heat wave in Memphis and I'm curious how much watering I should do to keep a young Sweet Bay Magnolia healthy. And this is Rick from YouTube. So Mary, you have any thoughts about trying to keep that Sweet Bay Magnolia healthy?
I think it's a great tree.
I think it's a great tree.
Yeah,
Me too.
so great choice on the tree. I think that it's still kind of young, so during droughts you might want to give it a little bit of water just to help it get established.
Okay, I can go with that.
Yeah, but that's the same thing, same question though. A lot of times your tree probably about an inch of water a week or something like that,
Okay.
and try to do that one time instead of you get run off, start back again. But I like a Sweet Bay Magnolia too. I had one in my yard.
They're good trees.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely have to keep it watered during drought-like conditions. It says 2 years old here. We did have a heat wave. I heard recently it's one of the second hottest summer in Shelby County, in Memphis. So you definitely want to keep it watered during the drought. And then Sweet Bay Magnolias, another name for Sweet Bay Magnolias are swamp magnolias. It's all in the name, swamp. So it likes moist soils, but those soils have to be well drained at the same time. So yeah, Sweet Bay Magnolia, swamp magnolia. So make sure it gets the water that it needs. It should be just fine. I think we all enjoy Sweet Bay Magnolia.
I like yeah.
This is a good question. What is the average lifespan of a ginkgo tree? My 150-year-old ginkgo just died, and I was always told they live for a while. This is Grant from Memphis,
my
Tennessee.
goodness.
Now, we know ginkgo trees are living fossils.
Yes.
I mean, thousands of years, possibly? Jason?
Very, very long-lived trees, yes. And of course, there's no way of knowing what's happened from the viewers. So yeah, they should live a long time, but there could have been all sorts of things that have caused the issue. And really, I think with trees, oftentimes we don't know what killed a tree. It's really difficult with a tree. So get another one in the ground soon.
And even though ginkgos, live a long time, everything has a date on
Yeah, it
it.
has
You
an
know what I
expiration
mean?
date,
Everything
doesn't it?
has expiration
Yeah,
dates.
it
So
does. Wow, how about that?
That is a loss. Sorry about that.
I know.
That's-
It is, yeah, 150-year-old ginkgo
and
tree.
let's encourage people to come here and see our beautiful ginkgo specimen. We've got a gorgeous ginkgo here.
How old do you think it is?
It was planted in the 60s.
Wow, okay. Part of my pink dogwood tree is struggling, while one main branch that gets the most sun is doing great. I've had a local arborist look at it, and he said there is no disease, but it's obvious based on this year's spring blooms that there's some kind of problem. Any thoughts? And this is Carol from Greensboro, North Carolina. So what do you think about that? What comes to mind?
I'm mystified.
You're mystified, okay? Yeah, so if you have one main branch that gets the sun, it's doing great, she says. So this is what I'm thinking. Number one, could it be winter injury? Okay, first thing that came to mind, right? Second thing is this, if that plant is already stressed, or the dogwood tree is already stressed, the dogwood borer may have gotten into that wood, okay? And it disrupts the flow of water and nutrients to the upper canopy, which causes branches to die. It could cause the tree to die. So I would call a local arborist, have them come out and just see if there are little bore holes there,
Sure.
right? Look for little frass on the ground, because I think that might be the culprit. I think so, right? Because again, you have one that's doing pretty good, but then you have the others not doing so well, so it's stressed. Dogwood borers are secondary pests.
Right, and the photograph, I was curious about that because it was lower branches, and dogwoods like shade.
They like shade.
So, you know,
Right, they like
it's
shade.
surprising. I'll bet you're right.
There are some trees, of course, in the background. You can tell whether it was getting enough shade, you know, from those trees or not, but it's stressed. And of course, anytime I think about stress, I think about secondary pests, which could be a borer, you know, which can, again, disrupt the flow of nutrients and water to the upper canopy. So that may be an issue there. And of course, you know, there's shallow rooted, you know, trees and things like that. So you have to make sure it's mulched and things like that, make sure it gets enough moisture. But two, I was curious about the winter, of course, you know, could there be a little winter injury there? But at the end of the day, it's stress, right? So
Some kind,
plants are
sure.
stress, yeah, secondary pests can be a problem. All right, so I hope that helps you out, Ms. Carol. Yeah, so I would, again, contact the local arborist, have them to come out and see if there could be evidence of a dogwood borer. I have 3 mature trees in my yard, which I believe are hackberries. About this time every year, they get covered in a black soot. Some nearby trees would get infected afterward, like my young tulip poplar, while others don't, like my oak tree nearby. What is this black soot and what can I do to get rid of it? And this is Bryce from White House, Tennessee. Right, so hackberries covered in black soot. I think we know.
Yeah, we got to
The
think
culprit
about
for that one,
what is
right?
our key plant-pest relationship here. When you have an insect that's named after the host plant,
yes.
that's going to be our first go-to.
That's gonna be your first
so
go-to.
the woolly hackberry aphid
That is it.
feeds, it has sucking, piercing mouth parts, feeds on the plant, and definitely produces tons and tons of black sooty mold.
Yes.
And it gets on, usually, if you're inspecting your plants, on the upper leaf surface, right? So if you flip the leaf over, you're not gonna see a ton of sooty mold on the bottom because feeding is happening and those insects are excreting the sooty mold, right? Or honeydew, technically. And it's falling on those surfaces. So it's gonna be nearly impossible for gravity to make sense to have it on the
that's gonna be
underside of the
impossible,
leaf.
right.
But it's also gonna be on the things that are underneath the trees, right?
right.
So if it's a sidewalk or patio furniture or, you know, other plants
Other plants,
or
right,
whatever.
right.
It will wear off with time. I mean, there's not a lot that we can do to improve the aesthetics. There are some control measures, but I don't feel like the feeding of this insect is detrimental to the life of the plant.
I don't think so either.
So, you know, it's up to the homeowner, depending upon where these plants are in their landscape, whether that warrants treatment or not.
Right. So they have to make that decision. You know, if you want to treat for the woolly hackberry aphids. Right.
And that would be like a systemic insecticide treatment.
systemic.
Homeowners can't get up into the canopies of their trees to spray every leaf. So the effective approach there would be like a root drench.
Yeah, it would have to be. You know, these are tall trees for sure. If you look at the picture, we did see a beneficial.
Yes, we
one
did,
there.
and
Right.
that's another
See?
reason why you might want to refrain,
Exactly.
because we've got good insects out there as well, trying to help us control those populations.
Right.
There's a lady beetle in the picture, an adult lady beetle, and then if you look up and to the right a little bit, we spotted a nymph,
Yeah,
a lady
good eye
beetle
by you, by the way.
larva.
Yeah.
It looks kind of like a little alligator
Yeah.
if you've never seen one before,
Yeah.
and it is also covered in black city mold.
Yes.
That's why we almost didn't see it there at the beginning. But they are both predatory. So lady beetles are predatory in their adult stage and their immature stages, feeding on soft-bodied insects. So they're out
Like the
there.
aphids,
Yes,
right?
those aphids are out there trying to consume the pest population and help us even the score.
Yes. Yeah, so let those beneficials do their job.
For
they will
sure.
do that. And I would like to go back to the tulip poplar.
Oh,
Tulip tree
yes.
scales. This is what that's
Yes.
going to be. And they produce a copious amount of honeydew.
They do.
Which supports the growth of black city mold.
So check out those limbs,
Check 'em
and
out.
it's gonna look kind of gross. It'll look
Oh,
bubbly
yeah,
almost.
that's
Like
bad.
you'll be like, why are all the little limbs and sticks so like look like they have warts on them? But when
like
you get
little bumps,
yeah,
yeah.
when you get closer, you'll be able to tell it's just those scale piled on top of each other.
Yeah. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for sending in the questions. To get more information on anything we talked about or to see answers to even more questions, go to familyplotgarden.com. While you're there, feel free to ask us your gardening questions. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.